Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're just landing here. I'm a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond, checking in with you on a Tuesday morning, the 14th. Woo! I tell you what, like it never stops, right? It never stops. Congratulations to our friends in Canada. Mark Carney is doing his thing and emerging as quite the global leader. Spirit has talked about that. I've read on that on the channel several times, especially as the whole tariff situation and Carney having to navigate with Trump, and he has just done an incredible job, really emerging as quite a leader. So from what I'm understanding, no expert in Canadian politics by any means, but from what I'm understanding, this new parliamentary majority now kind of solidifies Mark Carney. I'm seeing up to around 2029 in terms of really having some momentum, really being able to negotiate around tariffs, around deals with the European Union and NATO, as etc. Excuse me. So just really delighted for that, especially coming so closely on the heels of the win by Magyar in Hungary, right? The new prime minister in Hungary. So just seeing this momentum, seeing this energy, seeing the true will of people across the globe, right? It's not just about what we're facing here in the U.S. Although our stakes continue to climb, but it just is all pointing to the direction that things are going to go in. So extremely happy for our our neighbors to the north, as they say. Want to talk about this Spirit gave me. Keep your eye on talking about going back to Hungary and talking about the new Prime Minister, Pete Magyar. You all, Spirit was kind of on me today. Watch very closely Trump's moves around Magyar. I'm getting at Putin, who we know, he reports to Putin and Netanyahu, point blank, period, for entertainment purposes only, right? So I'm getting that clearly, Putin is not happy about what happened. JD still has egg all over his face, although it was a setup from start to finish, Spirit said about. They knew by the time, at the last minute ditch effort that JD went over there to pitch for Orban, they already knew it was a lost cause. So they set JD up for that. But that said, Putin is like, look, to Trump, I'm going to need you to do some things, because the deal is now we're seeing that because of this new prime minister, Magyar, that this could move some momentum towards Ukraine, because Magyar has been very vocal about wanting now to reverse Orban's policies and to really position Hungary now as a strong NATO ally, as a stronger force within the relations with the European Union, right? So Putin is like, hold up. That means support for Ukraine. That means, perhaps Zelensky and Magyar, because we know Zelensky's also been doing an amazing job of working around the globe, and becoming less reliant on on a very unreliable American government. Here's what I want to look at. Whoop! I almost lost my cards. And by the way, I'm reading with the Yazuka Tarot today for my readers. I want to look at whether Putin has given the directive to Trump to essentially, you got to do something about this. Our boy lost, and we know what that means in terms of continued support for, or growing support even for, Ukraine. Money, and other forms of capital to help Ukraine. So Putin is saying, you're going to have to do something to make nice with Magyar, or get some kind of deal in the works, or do something to keep Hungary within some way within our grasp. I've got the Page of Swords at the bottom of the deck. I feel like that's a signal of yes, but I also have the Hangman. I never ignore major arcana. There has been a conversation, Page of Swords, conversation. There's been a conversation about what do we do now, because we've got this new person, incredibly popular. Clearly, he cleaned Orban's clock, right, Magyar? He cleaned his clock, right? So, or the voters did, put it that way, right? So there's the Hangman saying, Putin has approached Trump and said, you got to figure out a way to flip this thing around, to do something that makes that does not completely close the door on our influence with Hungary. Spirit, are we going to see Trump try to, like, is he going to invite Magyar to DC? Is he going to try and establish some sort of, ostensibly establish some sort of relations with Magyar, the new prime minister of Hungary? Did Putin tell him to do that? The Knight of Pentacles, you better figure something out. You better move. Knights of movement. Pentacles are around economies, because again, is this because Putin is afraid of additional financial support or other support from Hungary for Ukraine? Is that what you're showing me in the Knight of Pentacles? The Nine of Swords. Yep. Putin is stressed about this one. He's stressed about this one. I mean, you think about it. Orban's been, 16 years. Goodbye. 16 years. Putin's been really reliant on that. And as I talked about, I guess, yesterday on the channel, I learned something new, that a lot of what happened with Project 2025 was textbook taken out of what Orban did when he took power in Hungary in 2010. So now that got burnt, talk about a burn book. That got burned up. All right, Spirit, will we see in their strength? Because he wants to, I get that Putin has given Trump a directive. Your boy went over there. He didn't get the job done, knowing that he wouldn't. He didn't get the job done. But so therefore, you're Mr. Charming out of the deal. I'm going to need you to go and talk to Magyar and find some way, somehow, to keep, at least on the surface, to keep relationships strong, to exert some sort of influence, to do something, to muscle up. And Trump doesn't have any muscle at this point. Certainly not in regards to this new guy. Queen of Wands. I don't know who that is. And the High Priestess. Okay, she's somebody. She's somebody behind the scenes. It could very well be that we will see, rather than a J.D. Vance who failed miserably, it could be that we will see somebody, some female within his cabinet or connected to Trump's cabinet, try and establish relations, maybe somebody on a foreign relations committee or something like that, but to try and reach out, because Trump doesn't want to take the risk, no matter what Putin's telling him. He doesn't want to take the risk of making any deliberate big show of, let's be friends, and Magyar reject it. He doesn't want to suffer any embarrassment and humiliation, certainly the way that JD has, right? So there's that. There will be a woman who works behind the scenes to try and navigate some sort of relationship between Trump, or extend some sort of olive branch, because they're not just going to walk away and okay, Hungary no longer exists. Putin won't allow that. The stakes are too high regarding potential help to Ukraine. Spirit, will Trump invite Magyar to the White House? Will he invite him? The Two of Wands, he sure will. He sure will. Now, when, timing, I'm not sure, but for sure, you all keep your eyes out on that. There's despite the loss, humiliating loss, that in terms of the connection between Orban and Trump and Putin and Netanyahu, there's too much. The stakes are too high, and Putin's not going to do it. He never does. He sits back and he tells Trump what to do, Mr. Charm, offensive, make things happen. That's going to be really interesting. And I'm also getting you all that Zelensky's going to play a key role in that as well, in terms of get back, in terms of the humiliation, some of the humiliation that he suffered at the hands of trying to make some sort of deal, make things work. And Zelensky, I want to get this right. I'm hearing like Zelensky is already, if he has not already, he will let Magyar know, look, if you hear from him, it's coming from Putin. If you hear from Trump, or anybody in his crew is coming from Putin, don't trust a word they say. And if you do decide to go there, be like wear a jacket, right? Remember that with Zelensky, wear a jacket if you do go. But it's going to be a really interesting thing. And once again, I think that this administration talking about the dismantling of it all, it will be another indication of his failure, of Trump's failure, and his dwindling influence and power, and Putin and Netanyahu are both getting increasingly disgusted with that because for a long time he's been a very reliable front man for them, and that's no longer the case. All right, you all. The second thing I want to look at real quick is what's this? Do we want to call it a purple party kind of thing? I watched a bit, but it was interesting. I watched a really interesting interview that Caitlin Collins did last night on CNN with Ro Khanna out of California, Representative Ro Khanna, and MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, former Georgia congressperson. So they formed this, they are embarking on growing a coalition, a bipartisan coalition regarding the Epstein files and the continued fight to really deal with that situation. We know that MTG made a big brouhaha about her position regarding the Epstein files. She has also been extremely vocal about the recent Jesus picture, and the excuse was that he was actually being a doctor. The internet went crazy with that. I know you all saw that with all the doctor memes, the Jesus / doctor memes that came out. Man, people are so in the midst of all this chaos. Talk about the resilience of people through things like coming up with things that give us a good chuckle, and just the sarcasm of it all. Just it's unbelievable. But there's something to it. There's something to this purple party kind of thing. We know that people are still very disenchanted on both sides. Democratic Party, we're going to talk a lot about that between now and the midterms, because they better get their act together. The DNC, Ken Martin and them, but that's going to take me down another road. But we're going to talk about that. There's some work that they need to do so they don't blow this thing, especially in regards to California, now that we've got Swalwell exited stage left. And now you've got this host of other people. We'll talk about it. Spirit is saying, stay on track, FFA. So remember, it was this talk about bipartisanship. It was Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie out of Kentucky, who, in terms of still standing members of Congress, MTG aside, who really worked together very effectively in promoting the release of the Epstein files from a bipartisan standpoint. Really did a good job of that. Massie, I'm getting that part of why MTG has entered the chat is because Massie is very preoccupied right now. Remember, he's got a May 19th primary coming up against Trump Spray the spray, FFA, spray the spray, girl. Okay, against the Trump endorsed, what's this guy's name? Ed Galbraith. So former Navy SEAL, a farmer. I don't know who he is, but to the extent that Trump made a lot of to do about primarying anybody who goes against him, and clearly this battle between he and Massie, because Massie has not backed down and will not back down. So Massie's tied up with that. And I think that's one reason why he's still on the front lines, and he will continue to be regarding the Epstein files. But that's one reason why I think we're seeing MTG enter the chat, because they've got to have a really a big horn from the Republican side. They've got to have somebody that can attract that attention. So far, apparently, aside from Massie on the Republican side, Ro Khanna must be having a difficult time finding another sitting congressperson to do the job. Maybe they'll join. But here's what I want to look at. Is there going to be a growing populist movement? Right? Populism is huge right now. Is there going to be a growing populist movement that looks a little purple? as we move into the midterms and this effort to do this bipartisanship, whether it's around Epstein or other issues. The Empress, I mean, you want some growth. There you have it. And the moon and the star. Dang, Spirit is, and the Ace of Cups. Spirit gave me the whole reading off the bottom of the deck. Mwah. Thank you so much. All right, the Empress, growth, nurturing, people, abundance in terms of the fruitfulness of it, that growing a different country, the potential birth of a new party, whether there is, I heard purple party, but whether that's a thing or whether spirit was just sort of being symbolic about that. But the idea increasingly is that the moon is people coming out of the shadows, the re-examination of this two-party system that everybody, well, I'm exaggerate to say everybody, but so many people are being turned off from, right? Neither side is really up to the moment. And I'm also, that takes me back to something I didn't know, talking about the success of Mark Carney in Canada. I did not know. I'm learning as I go too, that Mark Carney apparently did not have a lot of political experience. He was a newcomer. And look at how he has been catapulted on the world stage and doing a fine job of it, right? By all measures, right? So I'm seeing that in terms of with this moon and the Empress that we're getting, it feels like it could be something that we don't see yet. With the moon energy, very often it's something that's still in darkness, but it comes to light. It becomes illuminated. We get that aha, the download of the information. I think there is a growth because we've got the star, Pluto in Aquarius for a very long time. By the people, for the people, among the people, Uranus, change, shift, in what we have traditionally held as a two-party system. And I've got my Ace of Cups. For those of you who've been with me, you know that that's one of the ways that my spirit guides confirm when I'm on the right track with something. They'll give me an ace to say yes. So, and in cups no less. What brings people joy, what people will buy into, what they will believe in, what the natural flow of things, something that is greeted with optimism. Because right now, again, in both parties, there's just such a degree of skepticism that's going to have to be overcome. I don't see this necessarily as something that really takes shape. It's too late. The midterms are going to consist of Republican and Democrat candidates. That's that. But what comes out of that, Spirit, is this coalition that we're seeing between being led right now, this populist movement with Rokana and MTG. I understand. I heard some of you understand. She can't be trusted. Never, ever, ever. But they need her voice. There's a 7 of Swords. They're gonna have to find somebody else. As I said that, I pulled the 7 of Swords about MTG. They're gonna have to find somebody else. Yes, she is. She has stepped up to the mic. When does she not? She's serving a purpose, but in order for this sort of bipartisan populist movement around Epstein, but then other things as well, in order for it to really take root, they need more standing Congress people. And there is so much, MTG's sway only goes so far. She's a mouthpiece. She attracts headlines, but she doesn't necessarily exert influence, certainly not nationwide. Oop, 2 cards just came. The Knight of Swords. So that is the movement, and the King of Pentacles. I think this is Rokana, or the Knight of Swords could be that they are talking to, that Rokana and perhaps Massey are continuing to talk to their constituents, their standing Congress people, to try and get them on board. And so for right now, what I'm getting is MTG is a convenient and to a certain extent effective proponent of a populist movement around this bipartisanship and keeping the Epstein files on track, but she won't be in the picture long term. she's not going to be effective long term, but we will see more of it. All right, you all, that's what I got for today. I hope it was helpful. Keep your eye on Trump with the Magyar. Putin is really trying to push that. There's a lot of concern about further aid to Ukraine and how the puzzle pieces are shifting, keeping in mind Canada and Mark Carney and global influence. Now you've got this incredible, dynamic leader shifting all things. Speaking of prosecuting the people in Viktor Orban's orbit, that has come up in regards to the U.S., where many of you have said, when will these cabinet folks, the Bondis, the Hegsets, the Bessents, all of them, when will they face consequences? And Spirit is set for a while. It will happen, but it happens over a period of time. I know that's frustrating, but it just feels true nonetheless. But I'm saying that because we're seeing, to the extent that there's sort of this duality that's happening with what we're seeing play out in Hungary, is Pete Magyar has said, I'm coming after, there will be consequences for not, Orban is gone. We got him out, but now we're gonna clean house. We're gonna deal with some of you who went along with it. And I just see a mirror image of that happening in the US as well. So it's going to be some interesting times to come. I don't think I'm going to have any shortage of things to come and share with you all. And I so appreciate you being here. Please leave your comments. I appreciate it. I just ask that we always, show respect and tolerance from one another, right? Appreciate one another, because it's not easy out here these days. But we keep our chins up, our shoulders back. Take those deep breaths. Stop on a dime if you have to, right? And recheck, recenter yourself. Sky above you, earth beneath you, solid. All right? I'll talk to you a little later. Bye.